It's 1980s. Japan was growing so fast. New buildings were everywhere, factories were running day and night. People were buying cars, electronics, stocks, land. Things got so crazy that people started believing the land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo worth more than entire state of California. That's how wild the boom was. But history always teaches us a lesson. Whenever the euphoria peaks, the bubble bursts. And that's exactly what happened in Japan. In 1992, Japanese stock index, Nikkei 225, fell almost 60%. Real estate prices collapsed, banks were in trouble, companies were failing, people were scared, and they stopped spending money on everything except food and shelter. With no spending, industries fell apart. Japan felt a long, painful crisis. So to save the Japanese government did something bold. They cut interest rate to almost zero. This means anyone in the Japan could borrow money for almost zero interest. The idea was simple. If the interest rate go to zero, the companies could get the debt from Japanese banks from almost zero. Because of that, the companies will start production at low cost and they will hire more people, and when they hire more people get the jobs, and those people will start spending money in the economy, so the economy cycle will keep picking up. And again, when these people started spending money, companies get profits again, and when the companies get profits, they expand into big and they hire more people. So Japanese government thought if they cut the interest rate to almost zero, the economy will pick up again. And that's what exactly happened. But behind the scenes, something else also happening. Japanese banks and financial institutions realized if we borrow money for almost zero interest rate from Japan, why not convert that money into dollars and invest in US? And they started doing that. They started buying US government bonds, US stocks, American assets, and that continued for decades. Today, Japan holds almost $3 trillion of stocks, debt, and corporate bonds. This cheap Japanese money helped the America to grow fast, and Americans were happy, they are getting investments, and Japanese also happy because their investments in the US are growing. But there is one problem, that's Japanese interest rates. Japan is finally moving away from their zero interest rates era, and because of this shift, Japanese government bond yields were rising first time in last 20 years. Just look at this trend. The 10 years Japanese bond yield was stayed almost 0% and even negative in sometimes for most of the past 2 decades. But now it's climbing to 1.5% to 1.7%. And even longer term Japanese bonds are even rising faster. Look at the 30 to 40 years Japanese bond yields. They are above 2.5, nearly approaching 3%. If Japanese interest rates started rising, why would any Japanese company will borrow money from Japan and invest in United States? For almost 20 years, investors had this superpower, zero interest rate. They could borrow yen for almost nothing, convert that into dollar, and buy US stocks, tech companies, real estate, anything that offers high return. So this process called yen carry trade. But when Japanese interest rate rise, this superpower disappears. And suddenly the math changes. Borrowing money from Japan will become more expensive, and Japanese investors starts moving their money to their home. And remember, Japanese investors are not small players. They are some of the largest foreign holders of US treasuries, corporate bonds, and even tech stocks. Hi, let me explain a side story. I told you interest rates 1.7 to 3.1%, right? You might ask, bro, banks today give 4 to 5% of the interest. Who will buy the bonds that only pay 3.1% of the interest, right? But here is the truth. Banks can give you 4 to 5% interest in a small bank account. But if someone comes with a $1 trillion, bank cannot say, okay sir, leave your $1 trillion, we will pay you 5% interest every year. Because lending that much money out to the people is nearly impossible. Only one institution in the planet could take such amount of money. That's governments. That's why big Japanese funds go to the government and says, we want to buy $1 billion of the US treasury bonds. And they will ask 4% interest on the bonds, which is coupon rate. The US government takes the money and issue the bonds with 4% interest coupon rate and uses that money to construct roads, bridges, airports, and military spending. This is how the bond market will fuel the entire country. Now get back to our topic. How Japanese investors could blow up the entire AI bubble in the US. Now there are three different problems. One, American debt problem. They have almost $36 trillion of the debt. Second one, the Trump's tariffs. And third one, Japanese aging problem. Now let's talk about the first one, the American debt crisis. The United States started drowning into debt. Not small number. US now have almost 35 to 40 trillion dollars of the debt. And here is the scary part that no one talks. Every year the US have to pay interest. Interest for the debt. Just like we pay interest on our loans. But the interest they are paying is growing faster than their economy. Just look at this. In 2000s, US used to pay $200 billion in interest. Today it's paying $1 trillion just in interest. That's more than the US spends on its defense, education and infrastructure. So where does United States get this money from? Simple. They borrow more money from different countries. Countries like Japan. That money helps the US government to run. But here is the problem. The government with the exploding debt will become riskier over time. If American government borrows more money than they earn, its bonds become too risky. And who see this risk? The Japanese investors, especially the pension funds, insurance companies and big banks. So they pull out their money from US. They almost believed the America for 2 decades. But today things got changed. US is no longer safe investment. If America keep pulling the debt, the interest cost will increase. If US struggle to finance the debt, holding American bonds for too risky. Because end of the day, America needs money. Japanese need safety. And if we start talking about the reason number 2, Trump's tariff uncertainty. This one is one of the biggest problem because markets doesn't fear about the bad news. They always fear about the uncertainty. Because when Trump became second-time president, he put 25% tariff on Japanese imported cars. And Japan heavily depends on US. Every year, the US buys almost 1.7 million cars from Japan. So when you hit that industry with 25% tariff, the damage is massive. Now think just like an investor. When you helped American economy to grow, you provided funds and in the return, they are putting tariffs. Do you think Japanese will stay calm? Japan holds around $3 trillion in US assets. Even if they pull back 10% of their investments, it can shake entire financial system of the United States. Because this is not small investors' money. This is deep institutional money. Now there is a third reason. That's Japanese aging problem. Every year, more and more Japanese people retire. When people retire, they don't want risky investments. They don't want volatile markets. They only want one thing, guaranteed income. And who gave them that income? That's Japanese pension funds. These funds handle almost trillions of dollars in US assets. So what does this Japanese pension funds do? They start bringing their money back to home. If you see the US market, they were almost in a bubble, in an AI bubble. So why would a Japanese pension fund will hold in a overvalued US tech stocks? So one day they definitely pull those all money. So when they try to pull that money, that's when the tech stocks will start falling. Japanese institutions don't need to pull all of their money, just 10%. That's more than enough. It will crash entire US markets. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching.